So this Tezzeret deck is right now 5-0-1, and this should be pretty fun to watch.
What's interesting about this matchup is Blue-Black Tezzeret, 2 main deck copies of Ensnaring Bridge. Many builds of Elves cannot get out of it. Scott with a main deck Viridian Shaman. So that does change the matchup quite a bit. If Brett just makes a mad dash for Ensnaring Bridge, Scott can get out of that, which many Elves decks cannot game 1.
I think that, I was going to say I think Elves is the favorite, but I don't know if that's the case. I think being on the play certainly helps, though.
I think the fact that Scott has access to a Viridian Shaman main deck is a huge deal.
Oh, there's Nettle, and that'll be up there. It is. Jeez. Chalice of the Void on 1, which is the end-all, be-all for combo Elves. Again, you mentioned Viridian Shaman, and that matters. Don't get me wrong, but this is going to be rough.
Yeah.
Might have to go into some sort of embarrassing beatdown plan now.
Chalice of the Void is the best card in Legacy that's hard to play. Because the deck, the format revolves around 1 mana per spell so much that Chalice on 1 is brutal. But it means that you yourself have to play with very few 1 mana spells yourselves, and usually 0. So what does your deck look like in the games where you don't draw Chalice? This is the struggle with incorporating this card into decks.
That's the big question. And now that, I would say that Jayne has accomplished part 1, which is okay. I'm aside from playing spells. Now he needs to be able to win and not take too much damage in the process. And it looks like that Ancient Tomb is tapping for black mana. That's fun.
That is a nice combo.
Not taking 2 damage for that. You know what that is?
That's good deck building.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. You're on to me.
And now I'm not positive if Scott can break out of Chalice now, because he can Viridian Shaman one of them, but without his 1 mana Elves, I don't think he can get it back to his hand.
So, I mean, here's the thing. I think we're on the, and this is tough to say, the old Dryad Arbor, Nettle Sentinel beatdown plan.
Plan F.
I think that's the strategy we're on right now. Now, Nettle Sentinel is a card that I believe it says when you play a green spell, it untaps. The spell doesn't have to resolve, and Glimpse is going to be countered, and now we're going to come for 3, so plenty of things to throw away to untap that thing.
Scott now essentially has Stormbind in play. He can throw away any card for a shock.
Ah, that's good. That is tough to beat. And if Brett isn't able to put together, some blue mana or do anything of relevance, you see a Seat of the Sidon is going to come into play and just pass the turn back. As much as we are kidding here, this could be a loss, which is a crazy thing to think. Cradle's actually a pretty good draw there. That'll turn on Natural Order.
Yeah, it's a lot of mana. Natural Order is now online.
Yep. You gotta give Scott some credit here. He definitely knows how his deck works.
Yep.
Playing these spells into Chalice, now attacking here for 4. See if Scott wants to play land. He does not. Jayne draws a copy, I think, of Thopter Foundry. That could be annoying.
That's a tough card for Scott to beat at this point.
Looks like Jace is going to come into play here. Delta is going to put Jayne down to 9. It's time to go searching. However, Thopter Foundry needs to be accompanied by Sword of the Meek for the old combo. See if we're ever able to get there.
Yeah, 1 copy in the list. Can be transmuted artifact for, of course.
That's going to come in, that's going to bounce that, but this just allows Dryad Arbors to kill these.
He may not be that worried about the Jace. I mean, that's just kind of cleanup duty. With the Thopter Foundry in his hand, he can generate some 1/1s, clean up the Dryad Arbor that way.
Yeah, of course, Nettle Sentinel won't be able to come back down because of Chalice. Yeah. But I think if you're Scott here in this situation, I think you have to polish off that Jace. You can't let that thing stay in play. It's just too good of a card to let stay in play. There's a Tropical Island now. That's a card you don't actually see very often in Elves. So I'm going to scan the deck list here, see if there's any blue cards. You don't see that a lot. It looks like for 3 copies of Swan Song in the sideboard. All right.
Pretty rare.
Yeah, you don't see that ever.
That's definitely a card that's powerful when it's unexpected, that's for sure.
Yeah. I imagine Alter has probably caught some people off guard with that. Jayne going to go reaching here. We could see Thopter Foundry now. Thopter Foundry not really at its best right now without Sword of the Meek, but there is a Chalice to throw away. So take a look at this artifact. Shards of Alara style. This in combination with Sword of the Meek, very difficult to beat.
And Brett gripping that Force of Will just in case anything weird happens.
And no natural orders here.
No hard cast Crater Hoof, nothing weird.
Gotta be feeling a little bit better now if you're Brett. Not great, but good enough.
It's not 100% stable. I mean, this game can still get away from him if he draws poorly and Scott draws very well. But you have to feel pretty comfortable with your position. Scott has so many dead draws from this spot.
You know, this is a deck that Joe Lissette has been working on for some time, but has not pulled the trigger on playing it just yet. I do think that the weekend where Joe pulls the trigger on playing this deck, he's going to have a very good weekend. Whenever you sit across from Joe, you're just assuming that he's playing Miracles.
At least game one, I'm sure.
Yeah.
He's going to have a great tournament.
Looks like we got some mana here. This looks like a natural order. Maybe a Zenith. Okay, Zenith's kind of cool.
Zenith for 3 here. This allows him to get a Viridian Shaman.
So Alter trying to kind of break the silence here a little bit with the Zenith. See if Jayne has any interest in countering this.
Well, these decks rarely play with 3s. So Brett may not necessarily believe that he has something of significance to get from here.
You see Jayne's hand right now does have a transmute artifact, so we could work our way towards Thopter plus Sword very, very quickly here. There is a Viridian Shaman, and he's going to try to take down the Thopter Foundry. Thopter Foundry will sacrifice and make a Thopter, but this is going to work. There's your Thopter token. Can't forget about the 1 life that'll be gained as well.
Oh, this means now, with 1 mana spells locked, Brett can go get Ensnaring Bridge from this spot and actually lock the game up if he can keep his hand in.
Yeah, if you keep him at 0.
Again, he can't get the Viridian Shaman back to his hand because all of his 1s are locked. And this is his only out to Ensnaring Bridge in the main deck.
See, the Thopter's going to trade with Dryad Arbor. 1 damage is going to come through. Jayne's going to go down to 7. Again, it's not an attack that I think Alter loves to make, but he's got to keep slogging through here.
Yeah.
Really no other option.
Time is on his side here because he can barely cast anything in his deck, so.
Jace the Mind Sculptor the draw. Jace a little bit interesting in this situation. I think with Jace you probably have to Fate Seal.
I don't mind a Fate Seal.
Bouncing Viridian Shaman, of course, is poor.
That's a non-starter.
Yeah, not going to do that. There's an Ancient Tomb. I suppose you could bounce Viridian Shaman and then Force of Will it on the way back down, but that doesn't seem all that exciting to me.
Yeah.
May not cast Jace at all, though. We'll see.
If he's confident in Scott's list, if he knows pretty close to what Scott could be playing here, there is an argument for transmuting and getting the Ensnaring Bridge, though not really this turn because Scott will still be able to attack.
4 mana? Yeah, it's hard to pass up on Jace. Well, that's going to come into play. Starts at 3. We'll see if it stays there, if it goes up or down.
I like Fate Sealing a lot here. Unsummoning is not great, and the Brainstorm leads to just the Jace dying. Now, maybe Brett doesn't care too much about that, but felt maybe you can squeeze a little bit more by just plussing, forcing Scott to do something, and then having maximum utility the following turn.
Gotta go with the Brainstorm. Alter will take a draw. One of the cards right now in Alter's hand is Rook Thar. That's a 1 of main deck to be combo decks.
No Taiga in the list?
Nope.
I mean, he could fetch 4 Taiga and actually cast it in this spot.
In come the creatures. There goes the Jace. Just Verdant Catacombs, pass the turn back. A little surprised to see no Taiga. There's 2 values, a Trop, 2 Forest, 4 Cradles, 2 Dryad Arbors, and a bunch of fetch lands, but no Taiga here.
The Taiga is a little narrow to cast the Roark Thar because you can do that off of Virtual Rangers and so forth. So,
no, of course, it's a card that's meant to be natural ordered into play.
Right. But it would be nice in this spot.
Yeah. Legacy in those corner cases.
Well, the problem is it's hard for Brett to get his hand empty for the Ensnaring Bridge because part of his hand are these Force of Wills and he can't actually cast them because Scott cannot cast spells.
It's time to transmute an artifact. There goes Seat of the Sign-On. And you've mentioned Snaring Bridge quite a few times, so we'll see if that will be the weapon of choice. Looks like searching for something. Maybe a little unsure of what to search for here.
It doesn't look like he had really a target in mind.
I guess it's the fun thing. You can search for anything.
I'm sure he doesn't want to, doesn't really want to get a Thought Foundry because his only artifacts here are these chalices, which he's clearly concerned with. I mean, he didn't sack a chalice here, so.
You can get the Baleful Strix.
All right. That's fine here, too. Brett's just got to close out the last couple of things that Scott's capable of doing.
Yeah, this is a very prison-style deck. This kind of deck we haven't seen in Legacy for a little while. I remember White Stacks, but that was so long ago. That was a pretty good draw.
That is.
And you may be wondering, is he taking damage to cast that? The answer is no.
Well, he may be taking 2.
He might be taking 2. Definitely not 4. Now he can turn an artifact into beatdown mode. Yeah, it does go down to 6. So Tedra's going to take a look at the top 5 cards. So he'll get to select an artifact with that. And of course, the ultimate at 4 mana, or excuse me, at 4 loyalty.
One of Legacy's most beloved planeswalkers.
For how good this card is, it didn't see enough standard play in my opinion. And I don't know. The power level of this card's so high, I feel like it's just never seen enough play.
It's one of those things, again, the deck building cost is very high. You have to play with a lot of artifacts in your blue-black deck. That's a very specific thing it's asking you for. But once you've paid that cost, the card is very powerful.
Yeah, the ultimate does not take much to set up. It just only takes 1 uptick of loyalty, and then you can go off. It's definitely an aggressively costed planeswalker. And I think this was a card, imagined in design that was meant to be a really good card.
Oh, it is powerful. It saw some standard play. It's seen modern play. It's seen legacy play. I don't know about vintage play necessarily, but it has been played across basically every competitive format. Not a lot, but a lot of that speaks to just it's a hard card to incorporate in decks.
Yeah. There's some backdoor ways for Scott to be able to get out of the Chalice lock. That's the really interesting thing. You just do another copy of Green Sun Zenith, and so he could search up Wirewood Symbiote, return Viridian Shaman, and then kill 1 Chalice, then do it the next turn again, and then he can actually function. So there are some really interesting backdoor ways that he can play Magic this game.
It's all predicated on Scott not losing the Viridian Shaman. Once it dies, that's all done.
Yeah, that's off. I want to take a look at Tezzeret, make sure he knows exactly what it does do. The ultimate, of course, 4 loyalty, so it's already there. You take 2 for each artifact that is in play. So it'd be for 6 right now, but I think the more important thing is the minus ability, -1, you make an artifact into a 5/5. Such a sweet card.
A lot to like here. Planeswalkers like this are super sweet, I think. Ones that are very powerful for particular strategies. The Jaces and the Lilianas of the world, they're kind of just a little too... Yeah, these are just good in normal, in kind of every style of game of Magic. When you lose to Tezzeret or Nissa, at least your opponent had to try.
Mm-hmm. There's Zenith. There you go, Birchlore Ranger. Ah, I see where we're going.
Someone looking to cast Rorthar?
I see where we're going.
Rorthar is not shabby here. I mean, we know that Brett has a copy of Force of Will here. But.
Rorthar. The big question, I think, this is, kind of a minor thing, but, do you want to give away the fact that this is in your deck in this game?
We don't necessarily know that Brett has a Force of Will. This could be really powerful.
That's true.
If Brett can't answer it.
Yeah, Force of Will is going to counter that. So the 6/6 with Vigilance and Reach and has to attack every turn is no longer with us. Jayne going to go down to 5. And now I think Jayne may have it almost wrapped up. He still does need to tread pretty carefully, but it's close.
Scott could still conceivably just cast Craterhoof Behemoth.
Yeah, he's almost there.
Yeah, you know, he's 1 mana off. I mean, he can tap the Virtual Rangers to do it, but it's not inconceivable for him to win this game.
Elevator goes up here on Tez. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. See if we can find an artifact. As the altar very clearly has not played against Tezzeret all that much. There's another copy of Chalice. These copies are beginning to become redundant.
I mean, Chalice on 4 cuts off natural order, but
cuts off a lot of spells in Jayne's deck too.
right.
Chase and Tez.
Scott really doing a great job plugging along in the face of this Chalice on 1.
I didn't expect this game to be that close, given a Chalice on 1 played on turn 2. Or excuse me, on turn 1 on the draw.
Yeah.
I did not expect that. And this is exactly the kind of thing that Jayne does want to do. Looks like Brett drew a copy of, is that Darkwater Catacombs?
Yes, it is.
Yes. The old Odyssey staple land.
That's got Joe Lissette's Mystic Gate stink all over it.
It really does, doesn't it? It really does. What were those lands called back in the day?
The filter lands.
The filter lands, that's it. Before there were actually good filter lands. Yeah, a land that doesn't tap for any mana.
Right.
Artwork's kind of cool, though. Give it that.
Those lands showed up all over the place. At their time in Standard.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I mean, this was Blue-Green Menace, I mean, Tarnished Citadel time type of mana bases. So.
You know, we could have in the future the enemy cycle.
Oh, yeah.
Next set. I figured it out.
Those lands are a little complicated to play with, and they also lead to opening hands that don't generate mana. So I'd be surprised if those came back.
I cracked the code for whatever the name of the next big set is. It's really hard to pronounce. But I have it.
Filter Landopolis.
Yes. Yes,
Is that it?
That's the name of it. You can expect a blue-green bad filter land to a Standard tournament near you. Tezzeret's going to tick up. Would it have hurt Blue-Green Madness to have that land? Come on. Would have been nice so they could actually have real mana instead of having to play City of Brass. There's a bridge finally.
Yeah, now the lock is really getting put into place.
He showed his hand with the Catacombs. An attack here for 1. I do think you have to cast the bridge here, I imagine. Those Ancient Tombs will be tapping for black mana, I think. And there's a Signet, yep.
The filter lands perhaps the inspiration for the signets.
I hadn't considered that. Here's a bridge. Here's a Chalice on 1. Gotta get that hand empty after all. There's a Chalice on none. Will we continue to play?
Well, if he zeniths for a bouncer, then he can shaman the bridge.
Right, okay.
And then play continues.
Okay, I see it. It's gotta be Zenith for Viridian,
Symbiote.
Wirewood Symbiote. Bounce Viridian Shaman, cast Viridian Shaman, kill the bridge, get to keep playing Magic.
And if he's actually able to set that up, Brett could be in real trouble. Because he has no force of will. There's no way to stop this.
I'm afraid I have some bad news. There's a Tezzeret Ultimate. You see Brett's counting the artifacts.
Uh-oh.
8 times 2 is...
That's 16.
Is that your life total?
No, that's...
That is your life total. Okay. Brett Jayne going to win game number 1 here. Blue-Black Tezzeret up a game here over Combo Elves.
surprisingly close, given that, as you mentioned, Brett had a turn 1, Chalice on 1, which we assume was just the death knell straight out of the gate.
Apparently these lands were also called egg lands.
Oh, because of the eggs.
And the Sky Shroud egg. And
Yeah,
those guys.
right.
You know what's going to be in the next set?
The eggs.
Enemy eggs.
Enemy eggs.
Rotten eggs is what they'll be called.
Yeah, the rotten egg cycle. It's been a while.
You know what they need? Me and R&D.
Where are enemy filter lands and rotten egg cycle?
Seems to be a hole in design.
Mr. Phillips, you need to leave.
We will take a look at the sideboards here. We will start with Scott Alter, 2 copies of Thoughtseize, 3 Cabal Therapy, 3 Swan Song, a Scavenging Ooze, a Meek Stone, 3 copies of Abrupt Decay, an additional Natural Order, and a Progenitus. What do you like?
Have to imagine those Abrupt Decays are coming in. I don't know if he wants Progenitus in this matchup because based on what he saw out of Brett's deck, it's reasonable to assume Crater Hoof is still good to go.
Yes.
There's no reason to go get Progenitus necessarily. If he has room, the discard spells are really nice as well because Red's kind of got this fancy thing going on, but it's always hard to board in 8 cards when you're playing a deck like Elves.
On the other side, 2 Vanillion Click, 3 Flusterstorm, a Pithing Needle, a Helm of Obedience, a Lodestone Golem, a Trinitsphere, a Grafdigger's Cage, and Snaring Bridge number 2. Two copies, of Toxic Deluge, and 2 Damnation. These match removal spells seem good.
I like the sweepers a lot, the 2 Damnations, the 2 Toxic Deluge, the additional Ensnaring Bridge, the Grafdigger's Cage, cuts out natural order, and the Trinisphere seems good in this matchup too.
A lot of really good cards in the sideboard for Elves.
Yeah.
But Elves has been doing pretty well recently, so.
Chalice into Trinisphere is really hard for Elves to beat. That's
Good luck.
a hard opening to beat.
Good luck. That's what I say to that. If you win, you earned it. Tezzeret. Chris Van Meter played this deck a lot. Chris Anderson won an Open with this deck, but we haven't seen it since. Been a long time.
It's fun. It's really sweet. It's a complicated deck to play. And some people just stay away kind of from the fancier decks out of principle. The ones that feel like they have a lot of moving parts. You get some opening hands that just don't go anywhere. Some people stay away from that stuff.
Both players are going to shuffle up here. We'll be ready for game number 2 in just a moment. But while we do wait, we will take a look at our brand new Modern Premier IQs starting in Baltimore.
Yep, we're going to be running these every Sunday. They're $5,000 in cash prizes. Open points to all participants. Top 4 receive invites to the Invitational. These are going to be run, like Cedric mentioned, every Sunday starting in Baltimore, 10 a.m. So for you Modern enthusiasts, people without substantial legacy collections, we wanted to bring Modern tournaments to the Open Series. We got such an incredible response at Grand Prix Richmond, of course. Players regularly ask for these events, so we wanted to bring it to you. And that will be starting every Sunday in Baltimore. We flipped around the schedule a little bit, as you can see here. Instead of playing the quarterfinals of the Standard Open on Saturday, we're rolling all the elimination rounds of the Standard Open to Sunday. That'll start at 8 a.m. The Legacy Open is being moved up an hour to 9 a.m. start time, and then 10 a.m. the Modern Premier IQs are going to kick. The coverage is exactly the same. We're going to be showing the entirety of the Standard Open and the Legacy Open as well. The Modern IQ will be occurring off camera, but we regularly receive requests for Modern level play. We wanted to figure out a way to do that without causing any damage to our commitment to Standard or Legacy, and so we'll be starting that in Baltimore.
Stores have already been running some of these things. You do see the schedule here of stores that will be running them in the near future. More coming in 2014, I imagine 2015 as well. I'm just really happy that we were able to get these events for people. I love Modern. It was just all about figuring out the best way to incorporate it, and it looks like we have done that.
Now, the Premier IQs that you run at your local stores do not necessarily have to be Modern. Those are up to the TOs and the store owners. They just are 5K cash tournaments. With, again, the substantial Open Series points and invites to the Invitationals. You saw we had a couple stores there already ready to go later in the summer and in the fall. Stores, TOs, if you're interested in running these events, you can manage these and request these in the same way that you do the rest of the Star City Games organized play. If you're interested in running them, just head over to starcitygames.com, and it's easy to get you started.
And trust me, I'll be getting my bird on when those start in Baltimore. In between rounds, I might run over to see who's playing Tron. Because you know what? I am who I am.
Right.
And I'm okay with that. I shamelessly loot for the Tron deck always. Now, just the next step, the final step right now is we got to get some Vintage in here. That's what I'm talking about.
I'm interested, now that Vintage is a more accessible format because of Magic Online, you know, the decks are a tenth or less of the cost to build online. I can see one of two worlds. Vintage enthusiasts just play Magic Online, and that's kind of how they get their fix. Or people get a taste of Vintage and decide, you know what, I want to invest in the format. I want to start getting some Moxes. I want to get a Lotus. I want to start playing these decks in real life. I believe either reality, but I do believe there is the potential for Magic Online to springboard a dramatic rise in interest in physical Vintage.
I am in the latter camp.
You're getting a taste right now. You're really enjoying it, right?
It is so good.
For those of you who, of course, turning into the broadcast a little bit later, don't know Cedric that well personally, in between rounds, there's been a lot of Vintage on Magic Online going on here.
Maybe. Maybe not. I like Vintage a lot, man.
I still have a lot of nostalgia for the format because I grew up when I first started playing Magic in 95, 96, the Moxes were cards in people's decks. I mean, I've played with all these cards in tournaments before, way back in the day. I'm very nostalgic over them. The fact that there is kind of an absence of physical Vintage tournaments unless you're willing to fly to Europe or, Gen Con, I know in Waterbury, Connecticut, they have them from time to time. It's hard to find a thriving physical vintage scene. And I don't like playing with proxies. That to me ruins the spirit of what's going on.
I want the real stuff.
Yeah, what's charming about this is seeing the real cards in play. Cards that someone opened from an alpha or beta booster pack 20 years ago are now in play. So I don't like the proxies. It's hard to find a real physical scene. And I think there's a possibility of Magic Online, like I said, really springboarding in a renewed interest in vintage. It happened in the mid-2000s. We started the Gen Con Type 1 tournaments really blow up in popularity. I mean, attendance steadily rose. It's been on the decline or kind of steady over the last couple of years, but that could be changing soon. I wouldn't be surprised.
I have always wanted to play a Mirror's Workshop and a Transfer on turn 1, and I've finally been given the opportunity. For me, that's a dream of mine.
But can't you just walk around your neighborhood in solitude if you want that experience? Like, why do you need to have someone next to you to evaporate their existence? Why does that have to be the way it goes?
I need to see the look on their face, knowing that they can't do anything.
Right.
That is the key. The frustration as I play my Lodestone Golem the next turn, and they can do less.
Watching their eyeballs with every draw step.
Yeah. Was that a land? It doesn't matter.
Oh, was that any card in Magic?
Yes.
Sorry. That doesn't work here.
I have always liked Shop quite a bit. And the vintage decks are cool, man. There's Shops, there's Storm. I've been playing Bug Fish for a while. That deck seems awesome. Oath. It's just, you get to do everything you dream of with no consequences.
Yeah, it's a consequence-free zone.
You want to kill me on turn 1? Sure.
Yeah, that happens sometimes.
I'll kill you on turn 1 too. I don't care. Scott can take a mulligan here.
I believe we see the Trinisphere.
I don't know why I'm so drawn to the decks that make it so my opponent doesn't get to play Magic with me, but I sure am.
Oh, that's not entirely fair. I mean, Kithkin, Goblins, these are decks you've historically been drawn to. They allow your opponent to do all sorts of things. Goblins, if anything, allows your opponent to do too much.
Yeah. That's why I set her down for a little while.
Right, yeah. Set her down. I want my opponents to play. Yeah. I want my opponents to have a good time, but not too good of a time.
Easy with all those cards that are way better than mine.
Right.
Let's pump the brakes a little bit there.
Listen, I got needs too, you know? It can't just be all about you.
Can't I just hit you with a lackey?
Right.
And we call this a game?
Nope, they printed way too many powerful 1/2s.
I don't know the last time someone got hit with a lackey. It feels like it's been years.
I bet Sneak and Show players get hit by that card still.
And then kill you the next turn?
Right.
Yeah.
Again, each player gets to do their thing.
You get to pick.
So Scott has mulligan here into the Progenitus. So now we're on a 5-card hand. And I feel like I've been seeing a lot of Progenituses in the opening hand lately.
How's that guy always slide in there?
Ross Miriam lost the finals of the Legacy Open basically to drawing the Progenitus.
Yeah.
We had a match on camera earlier where the Progenitus showed up.
Always sliding into the opening hand or the draw step.
Yeah.
It's really annoying. There's only one of them.
Sometimes I wonder if these decks should be going up to 2 in the sideboard because the matchups where you want Progenitus, it's just a stone lock every time you put it into play. Now, I understand the sideboard space is really tight, but...
I wonder if Skull Clamp is restricted in Vintage.
I would be surprised.
If it was restricted?
Yeah, I think I would be surprised.
No. It's got to be restricted, dude. It's the best card I've ever seen.
It's hard for me to imagine in that format someone saying, "Yep, one-ton creatures and Skull Clamp. That's not okay."
I'll find a way. Wow, legal.
Knew it.
Brian DeMars, get on the horn. We got work to do.
You know that Gush is legal in that format. It's really hard to say there's, free cards. That's too much.
You're right. Put them both in the same deck. We have work to do.
We do have work to do.
Windswept Teeth to begin things here. Brett Jayne going to have a Dark Slick Shores. One of the things I like about Brett's deck is he's got all these fun blue-black lands. We don't see the Shores or the Catacombs very often.
Oh, the Scars lands I think are underplayed in Legacy.
I think they are too, given like the speed of the format. Those lands should come into play untapped all the time.
I understand most people want to play with fetch lands just because there's so much value in shuffling or putting stuff in your graveyard. So there's other ancillary benefits, but for a lot of decks, these Scars lands feel like pretty big upgrades in a lot of places.
Glimpse of Nature, the draw. We got Alter on mulligan to 5 here. There's a Cradle in his hand, so he can start to get somewhere.
Yep. Like Reanimator really everyone wants 0 copies of Dark Slick Shores. We're positive that's correct in Reanimator. I don't know.
It's hard to believe it's correct.
Maybe it is, but everyone seems to be pretty certain no one ever plays any.
Make it a 1 of.
Yeah.
Boom. A Talisman of Dominance will come into play here for Jayne.
Scott a lot less susceptible to Abrupt Decay, or to Chalice rather post-board now that he has Abrupt Decays, which is good. But the problem here is these Toxic Deluges.
There are a lot of problems here.
Yeah, there's a number. I think that also next turn might be Trinisphere and then Lodestone Golem and then Deluge. That could be Brett's curve potentially this game. Pretty tough on Elves.
Seems like it may be difficult to beat. Scott's really sandbagging a Cradle here. I'm not entirely sure why. You know, he could play Cradle plus a 1-drop this turn, and there's an Elvish Visionary, but I'm a little surprised to see that he's not playing Cradle into Heritage Druid and, you know, trying to actually get something going. The longer you go, the worse it gets.
He sandbagged a Cradle last game, too, I think, to show more weakness than what he had in a spot where he felt probably like he needed Brett to mess up for him to get out of the game.
Down comes Vintage Staple Lodestone Golem. And if it's good there, it's good here.
Yeah. And this is where maybe sandbagging the lands comes back to haunt you a little
Perhaps
bit.
a touch. A touch. Because like this turn, for example, he drew a copy of Windswept Teeth. He could sacrifice that for a Dryad Arbor, which adds more mana to the Cradle, and he'd be able to do more things. Now he can't really do anything, and it's only getting worse now.
Yeah, he may be not able to cast he may not cast another spell this game. I think that's in play.
Yeah, and the important thing here, I think, is the fact that, again, you have to recognize in the matchup that, sure, I'm on a mulligan of 5, but you're not really left with much of an option of, yeah, I'll do some bobbing and some weaving and stuff. I don't think you have the ability to do that. You just have to try to, you know, do what you can do because, I mean, what you're playing against is a prison-style deck.
Oh, yeah, and the lock is starting to get applied here. Big time.
This isn't exactly a sleeper hold. What is a more painful and immediate submission?
When you break someone's arm.
We'll say
that's pretty immediate.
A Kimura, perhaps?
Yeah, that's immediate. That's a more immediate one.
Okay, gotcha. Now Lodestone Golem feeling frisky coming into the red zone. I think it has 5 power. Did you know that?
Yeah. Juggernaut stats.
How do I just let you not cast spells, but then it kills you in like 3 turns?
It wouldn't be surprised if this card was intentionally designed to upgrade the Juggernaut slot that Stacks decks were playing in Type 1.
All right.
Same numbers, but a power that's so good for them.
All right.
You know, someone in R&D probably said, you know, we got these Stacks decks, they're still playing with Juggernaut and Su-Chi.
Enough.
Can we figure some way to have this not be the case? Magic's creatures have gotten so much better. This deck still plays with creatures from Alpha.
That kind of makes
and
it charming.
Antiquities. No, I like that. I actually like that stuff a lot too, of course. But
gonna need to pay, I think, 1 more, maybe. So obviously, this is the Trinisphere plus Lodestone Golem conundrum, where it's like, do I pay 3 or do I pay 4? Because of course, this is gonna cost 3, and Lodestone Golem makes it cost 1 more.
Yeah, basically, Trinisphere locks in the cost.
Yeah.
And then Lodestone Golem gets applied over the top.
Yeah. At least that is my understanding of the card. However, there is a judge nearby, and I'm sure that the question is being asked right now.
Yeah, sure.
So
that was my assumption. Perhaps that is not the case. Again, don't play a lot of Vintage, so
you can fix that.
I could. Now I can. All this may be for naught in any case, though, as I think Toxic Deluge might get deployed this turn.
See exactly what Jayne wants to do on this turn. You saw the attack, the block with the Elvish Visionary, and it gets picked back up. So now we're going to go reaching here for some manas. This is going to be 4.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, there's a Toxic. That's going to be for 1.
This seems like a really tough matchup for Elves. Brett has yet to play a single reasonable card so far. All right, so now you have no mana. And Trinisphere and Lodestone Golem are in play.
Now here's the Dryad Arbor. No.
Nope.
No, try again. No.
You don't have enough mana for that.
No. This is what it's like to play against a prison-style deck.
Yeah.
Did you try to do something? What were you thinking?
Did you draw a magic card this turn? Sorry.
You are in prison.
Yeah.
In for 5. Also going to go down to 9. This is my kind of deck right here.
Yeah, this seems right up your alley.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. A spell?
How adorable.
Yeah. You're going to have to pay a little more for that muffler. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Sale ended last round. We're back to full price.
Scott needs to draw a land right now to play. That's a Deathrite Shaman. You know what? That's a really good card,
Yeah.
Deathrite Shaman. Just not right now. So this is going to be some mana here. This is 2 and 3, so something can come down. It's an Elvish Visionary. Could see a Force of Will here, removing a blue card and paying 3.
He also cast it. I mean, he has 6 mana.
Oh, yeah, okay, sure.
Can play it over the Lodestone.
Sure, sure. Yeah, there's that. Bunch of manas. Oh, look at that. The Delta tapping for black.
Yeah.
That is nice. That's just every angle.
That is every angle. And now the lock is even in fuller effect because now Lodestone Golem is the Abyss.
Yes.
This is a really charming deck.
And at home, if you would like your opponent to have no fun at any point, got the deck for you.
Well, fun is zero sum.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's what Glenn Jones saying.
Right. I believe Glenn might have cribbed it from me, in fact.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Possibly. Got a Flusterstorm over here. There's a Transmute artifact as well. Again, this is a deck that Joe Lissette has been working on for some time. Brett Jayne, a friend of his, excuse me. Jayne actually deciding to pilot the deck while Lissette is still sticking with Miracles. Lissette out of top 8 contention at this point, but Jayne is certainly in it.
And there's no second Lodestone Golem in the deck, it appears. Brett cannot transmute an artifact, I believe, for anything to increase the clock. I mean, he can get a Strix, I guess. But that's not really that compelling.
Yeah. I think Jayne is trying to figure out how he can finish off the game like the next turn, so he doesn't have to play anymore.
Well, at this stage of the things, Scott is just basically locked up. I guess there's the risk of him having Viridian Shaman, and then things might get complicated. So if he can find some other way to add to his clock or give himself insurance against that, I'm sure he will.
I've said it before. I'm going to say it again. Can we get Workshop legal in Legacy? Would it be too good?
I think that people might be annoyed that they would have to spend $4,000 on or whatever the price would go up to.
Okay, forgot about that. I like when decks like this are good. Maybe I'm just, maybe I'm wrong.
I like when narrow, distinct decks are powerful.
My kind of deck.
If you're losing to a bunch of artifacts, there's probably cards you can go to in your sideboard that would affect the matchup.
I would not get mad if I was playing a deck like this and someone pulverized me.
Right.
That's fine. I deserve it. Is that a oh boy. I think that was a Tezzeret the Seeker.
Oh yeah, we're going way back.
I don't see this one very much. 3, 5. Counting all the mana here. Seeing if we can get the job done this turn. There's a Transmute artifact? Okay. What do we get to search for to win the game? I imagine something. Gonna sacrifice an artifact here. This is the fun, it's like a puzzle box.
Yeah. Giving it a once-over.
Your guess at home is as good as ours. Brett Jayne is providing your entertainment right now. Uh-oh. That feels like some second guessing to me.
I mean, this game feels very hard to lose, kind of no matter what.
It looked like the idea was a Grafdigger's Cage, but this idea may have changed now. Which, Mid transmute, we're attacking.
Yeah, hold on.
I don't think that's the best idea. let's slow her down a little bit and figure out what we're gonna get, and then if we're gonna pay for it. All right, there is a Thopter Foundry.
And Thopter Foundry is fine here to get. This is the insurance policy against Viridian Shaman off the top, because now Brett can just make 3 1/1 flyers and win the game.
Yeah.
Although now there might be some discussion about what happens when you transmute Artifact with Trinisphere in play.
Sure. Also known as Earn Your Judge Badge.
Yeah. Yeah. So the rule is apparently that Trinisphere is always applied last. Costs go up, costs go down, and then Trinisphere applies.
All right. I guess I will learn that when I start to play more Vintage.
I just assumed it was a synergy these decks had. You know,
Same.
Trinisphere plus Lodestone Golem plus Thorns and stuff seems so powerful. They're all fine on their own, but I assumed it was like the full lock.
Maybe it's better that it's this way,
Yeah.
because then no one would get to play Magic. Here's a Heritage Druid. I think now would be a good time maybe to fire off this Thopter Foundry, sacrifice 3 artifacts, and call it a day.
Yep.
And that's going to do it. Brett Jayne's going to win this match over Scott Alter. 2-0. Blue-Black Tezzeret moves on to 6-0-1. You can see Joe Lissette is loving it. His friend is still undefeated.
Great to see Joe on the sideline here. You know, tough tournament, but still clearly rooting on his friends.